Chapter 19. The Alignment. Myr'ides' lessons required more inner calm and stillness than Kai had given to any kind of training before. As a rune runner, speed and action were the only currencies that mattered, and those were all Korik had ever demanded of him. But channeling Prismir the way the Myr'ides had was a different discipline entirely, asking for the kind of patience that causes the body to forget itself entirely. Kai had no such patience. At first. Myr'ides didn't drive him the way Korik had, either. She demanded no competency by any particular measure of the churn. There were no hourglasses, no tapping feet, no pressure to perform. In a way, that made it easier to learn from mistakes, because there was more room to make them. And once he found that particular flow of trial and error, progress came with surprising speed. The early exercises were deceptively plain. Breathing, meditation, tracing minute pulses of energy through his chest and limbs, learning to feel how magic's essence answered the rhythm of the world around him. For hours, he sat as still as stone, reaching for sensations that dissolved the moment his attention sharpened toward them. "This is impossible," he had said with a flustered sigh on the second churn. "What am I even searching for?" "You're searching for your Eira," Myr'ides replied. "The place where your spirit exists everywhere in your body, and nowhere at all. A single point outside physical space, woven into what we call the weave. That's where the Kris'thal has anchored itself." Kai stared at her, waiting for clarification that would mean something to him. She only smiled. "The witches use their awareness of the Eira when they cast their far sense wide. You'll understand it when you feel it." He didn't. The concept stayed frustratingly beyond him, like trying to cup water in a clenched fist. But he kept at it, hour after hour, until some semblance of progress was made. It came to him like a sourceless sense of movement. He couldn't hold it long before it slipped away, but in that brief moment, he felt a thread of Prismir branching out from that point, reaching, he was certain, into the dagger laid before him. By the third churn, his exhaustion had settled deep into his bones. Myr'ides watched him from across the low trestle table. Without speaking, she placed a dark ruddy gray crystal between them. Its surface was angular, marked with runes so faint that Kai had to squint to read them. In the glow of the braziers, they seemed to almost move. "What's this?" he asked. "A vos chrysum zelith," she replied. "Like the ebon crystal, but much smaller." He tensed up. "Don't worry, this is my own. It's currently empty." "And you want me to fill it?" "You've got the right idea. Channel the Prismir in the Kris'thal into it," she said. "It will only answer to focused intent." "What if I don't know what my intent is?" "Then you blow up and die." Kai recoiled until Myr'ides relented with a laugh. "It was a funny joke, mostly. But do remember, the Kris'thal will enact its own will without your guidance. You need to act as the conduit for its power. That way, you have agency in how it is used." "Isn't that control? You said I shouldn't force it." "No, it is a communion between you and your Kris'thal." Kai's gaze settled on the crystal. He didn't reach for it, though. "Why does it need to be charged?" he asked. "A friend is bringing a weapon that requires power I cannot provide with dust and runes alone. But you can." Myr'ides adjusted the crystal's position slightly. "And there is another reason. Your goal is to shatter the ebon crystal, yes?" "It is." "Then you need to understand what that will feel like." She gestured to the shard. "For now, practice the flow. Fill the lattice, then pull the Prismir back. Feel how the crystal resists, how it wants to hold on to what you give it. Her voice steadied into something harder. But when you face the ebon crystal, filling it won't be enough. You'll need to flood it with everything you have. Channel the prismir until the lattice can't hold anymore. And then, at the moment it peaks, you yank that connection back. Pull until the crystal shatters from the inside out. She leaned forward. But don't break mine, Kai. It's the only shard I have, and I can't get another one. He wrapped his fingers around the Kris'thal's hilt. Its energy bucked immediately. He inverted the weapon, balancing the tip against the center of the shard. The blade wobbled before settling, hovering just above the surface. He released his grip. His eyes closed. He reached for the connection, and the Kris'thal answered with a violent surge that jolted up through his palms and into the blade. He gritted his teeth, trying to guide it downward, to funnel it into the lattice beneath. The prismir refused. It thrashed, spiking hot and cold through his grip, scattering in every direction except the one he needed. Sweat gathered on his forehead. His arm began to shake. Don't steer it like an old mule pulling a wagon. He exhaled sharply and let the frustration go. His doubts, his impatience, the restless energy of the Kris'thal. He focused instead on the steady drum of his own heartbeat, the expectant scintillation of the mineral below, and the memory of light cascading through the crystal archives. He opened his eyes. A pale gold traced the edges of the crystal. Bravo, Myr'ides said with a clap. Now, Kai, you're beginning to understand. On the fourth churn, Kai sat outside one of the Enclave's stone structures with the Kris'thal resting across his knees. He shut his eyes and kept his breathing measured as he traced the flow of energy inside him. For the first time since waking, he felt like he was truly making progress, moving towards some center within him, keeping the prismir balanced. Then came a pair of heavy footsteps. Kai looked up and saw Korik trudging toward him. The massive cannon from his workshop was strapped to his back, and the contraption groaned with every step, metal plates clanking like a junkyard avalanche. The sheer size of it should have sent him toppling forward. It didn't. Korik crossed the distance and let the weapon crash to the ground. Then he grabbed Kai by the shoulders and hauled him into a crushing embrace. Thought I'd lost you, boy. Kai laughed weakly. You almost did. Korik pulled back, scanning Kai's face. Wari crossed him briefly before he settled back into his usual gruff demeanor. You look like a witch's backside. Thanks. You're not exactly a vision yourself. Korik grunted in agreement, dropping onto the ground beside him. Been running supplies back and forth like a pack mule. I bet I look like I've been dragged ass first through the ruins, but I'm still kicking. He clapped Kai's shoulder once. Bloody good to see you awake, though. Real good. Kai gestured to the cannon. You said that thing didn't work. What changed? Yeah, well, turns out it just needed a bit of sorcery. Korik's grin sharpened. The power core was drained. Useless as tits on a bull. Myr'ides had a look, did some witchy thing, and now the bugger hums like it's got a purpose in life. Kai raised an eyebrow. Myr'ides fixed it? Juiced it up more like. I did the fixing. Korik leaned back in his hands, looking far too pleased with himself. Means next time some voidkin needs removing, I can do it all proper like. Kai shook his head, but he couldn't quite suppress the grin. Sounds dangerous. I genuinely don't know if that's reassuring or terrifying. Bit of both keeps you sharp. Korik's expression sobered slightly. He rested his forearms on his knees. So, you gonna tell me what happened out there? Kai talked for a long time. He told Korik about Eira pulling him out from under Elindra's blade, the chase through the abyssal maw, the crystal archives, the Black Sentinel, all of it. Korik listened without interruption, and his eyes were fixed on the ground between his boots. When Kai went quiet, Korik exhaled through his nose and scrubbed a hand over his face and beard.
Right. You've gone and stepped in it proper then.
He shook his head.
Balls deep in the worst kind. And lucky you didn't get yourself murdered.
Kai let out a soft, humorless laugh. That about covers it.
Seems like you're not done, though.
No, not done. Kai's fingers tightened around the Kris'thal's hilt. The crystal pulsed faintly against his palm. This thing's got a mind of its own.
So, what's it after then?
The witches made the ninefold fracture with it. I can feel it. It wants to undo what they did and right the wrong.
And you're just the lucky bugger it picked to haul around, yeah?
No, Kai shook his head. It knows what I want. That's why it chose me. Because our paths align.
Do they?
Korik's eyes narrowed.
What do you want, boy?
Destroy the Nightshawl. Free Danetta.
That's what the bloody relic wants.
Korik jerked his chin at the Kris'thal.
I asked you what you want.
Kai doubled down. I want a better world. For Mother. For everyone I love. I'm destined to fight for them.
Korik snorted. Destiny's a load of bollocks. Fancy trinket picks you. Doesn't mean you owe it your life. Always remember your reason, boy. If it really is saving the world, right on. And if there ever comes a time when you and that thing stop seeing eye to eye, you do what you gotta do and chuck it into the sea.
Yeah. Kai looked down at the dirt near his feet. Korik leaned forward and clapped a hand on Kai's shoulder.
You'll sort it. You're tougher than you give yourself credit for. Always have been. With Eira as your pacer, you two would be unstoppable.
Korik stood to leave and hoisted the cannon over his shoulder. He took a few steps before Kai called out, Korik?
Yeah?
I don't know if I can trust her.
Is that so?
She's not a runner. Never was. She lied to us. All this time, she was one of them. How am I supposed to look past that? Korik rubbed his jaw, considering.
Yeah, well, we had a chat about that. She's got her reasons for keeping her gob shut. Thought we wouldn't have come if she told the truth. You'd do the same in her boots.
Kai said nothing.
Look, she hauled your ass here, didn't she? Kept you from getting obliterated, witch or no witch. That counts for something.
Doesn't mean she's telling me everything. Kai's voice dropped, the conflict bleeding through despite himself. I can feel it. There's something she's still holding back. How can I trust someone who keeps secrets like that?
Your old man and I once dragged Myr'ides kicking and screaming out from under Valthera's nose. Cycles before you were born. She didn't want saving. Clawed at us the whole bloody way up through the gap. Tried to bolt back every chance she got.
Kai stared at him. He continued.
Took her in anyway. Fed her. Didn't ask questions. Didn't make her talk about whatever horrors that witch put in her head.
Korik paused, reflecting.
It took time, but eventually she figured out we weren't going to use her like Valthera did. Actions. Showing a bit of kindness won her over.
Kai was quiet.
Judge Eira by what she does, boy. Not by what you think you ought to know about her.
He nodded firmly.
She's got secrets. Course she does. Everyone's hiding something. But you don't need to know her whole life story to know whether she'll stand with you when the shite tips from the wheelbarrow.
He put his arms on his hips and arched back.
Eira's shown you what counts. Rest of it, that's her business, till she's ready to share. And we don't get to pry it out of her just 'cause we're curious.
I understand. Thanks, Korik.
Why, no sweat.
Korik grunted as he shifted the weight of the weapon on his shoulder.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a weapon that may or may not blow me to kingdom come, and I'd like to test that theory before darkness tips over the Badlands again.
He took another step and stopped again, glancing back at Kai.
You do the same, yeah? Don't need you going up in smoke again.
Kai rolled his eyes. No promises. As Korik rounded the corner and out of sight, Kai barely had a moment to himself before Raven appeared beside him, silent as ever. He startled. Easy there. You could try making some noise when you walk. Well, where's the fun in that? She put her hands on her hips. Do it for my sake, if nothing else. So, what are you doing out here all by yourself? Thinking, Kai said. Same thing. A wry edge crept into her voice. But you look like you're doing way too much of it. Good to know you're concerned. I am. She dropped into a crouch beside him. Just wanted to see if you were still in one piece. She gestured lazily at him from head to toe. Looks like you are. Mostly. Raven studied him for a moment, then nudged his arm. You're different now, you know. Kai raised an eyebrow. Different? How? I never got to be your pacer, so I didn't see you come up through Korik's training. She leaned back on her hands. But I've seen plenty of rune runners find their stride. And you found yours. Kai wasn't sure how to respond. Raven's mouth quirked. You were always going to be a good runner, Kai. But now I know you're going to be a great one. There's a presence to you. She pointed to the Kris'thal. That thing's not just a blade anymore. It's in you. Or maybe you're in it. Hard to say which. He let out a slow breath. Is that supposed to be reassuring? Of course. I think so. She tilted her head. You're cutting them down, one by one. There were 5 witches holding the Nightshawl together when this started. Now there's 3. You keep this up, and the whole thing might actually fall apart. Kai stared at her. He'd been focused on surviving each encounter, and on learning to wield the blade without it tearing him apart. He hadn't stepped back to see what he had wrought. 5 witches, now 3. He'd killed 2 of them. It was supposed to be a triumph, but instead it dropped in his gut like a lead bag. Killed. He'd ended them. Something about that didn't sit right. Raven stood, brushing dust from her tight leathers. Anyway, just wanted you to know someone's noticed. She shot him a grin before turning to leave. See you after the Vale, Kai. Later in the Vale, after supper, Kai sat with his mother in the small common room between their 2 chambers. She had her tea, and she was making no effort to pretend she wasn't watching him over the rim of it. He leaned forward, elbow planted on the table, chin resting in his palm. You're staring. I can't help it. Her voice was soft. You look troubled. A lot's happened. You can tell me. Kai looked down at the table. The word sat in his chest a moment longer before he let it out. I'm a murderer. She lowered her tea and waited. They call each other sisters. He turned his hands over, studying them, and I keep thinking about what that means. When I ended Alindra and Zorith, I kept wondering whether there's a kind of grief in them that looks like ours. He laid his hands on the table. I don't want to trade their cruelty for mine. Kai, they're witches. They were going to kill you. I know that. And they've taken our people for generations. I know. His voice came out harder than he intended. But, Mother, does knowing that make it right? Or does it just make an act of evil just a little easier to live with? She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers wrapped back around the cup. You have a good heart, she said finally. That's what makes this so hard. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Because it's true, Kai. She leaned forward. Survival doesn't leave room for righteousness. You did what needed to be done, and you were the only one who could. Mother's words made sense, but they didn't touch the knot that was in his stomach. Father thought the same thing. He convinced himself he was doing the right thing, that he could stop them. But he failed. And now I'm doing the same. No, you're not. Kai leaned back in his chair. Aren't I? Your father. He let vengeance consume him. Her expression darkened. Her fingers tightened around the ceramic mug. He didn't think about what came after. He just wanted them destroyed. He leaned forward again, almost looming across the table. And what am I doing, Mother? How is this different? Different? You're still asking that question. She held his steady gaze with one of her own. That's the difference. He searched for a flaw in that. He'd spent the better part of the veil building a case against himself, cataloging every reason why what he'd done was wrong. He expected to find the same reasons echoed by Mother. Instead, there was just her steady eyes and her solid belief in him. He leaned back, shoulders dropping, and stared at the crystal dagger resting on the table. Mother relented, her eyes dropping to the Kris'thal. So, how does it feel about all this? He closed his eyes and reached for the thread of prismir that the Kris'thal seemingly kept wrapped around his elir. It's impatient. It wants to finish its mission. And you? She asked. He tapped his chest. Still working that out, he said. She studied him, then gave a small nod. A moment later, her mug pressed its way into his hands. Eira stood at the edge of the enclave, arms crossed against the chill, staring out at the desert. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, so she allowed her gaze to settle as far east as the veil would permit. The Nightshawl pressed heavy overhead, but she gave up on sleep hours ago. Too many thoughts kept tugging at her consciousness. Behind her, beads clattered against a stone doorframe. She turned. Kai stepped out from the shelter, his breath misting in the chill. For a moment, her eyes locked onto him, this boy, standing 10 paces away without the faintest idea of who she was to him. She turned back to the desert before he could catch her staring. His boots crunched across the gravel behind her, unhurried, and then he was beside her, squinting out at whatever had held her attention, as if he might find something there. Keeping a lookout? He asked. No. He let out a small sound of realization. Couldn't sleep. Sleep and I have, never been on good terms, she said. A faint smirk crossed his face, visible in her peripheral vision. He didn't press for conversation, but he continued to stand there with her. The silence drew long. She had grown used to these moments with him, both comforting and agonizing. Every time he looked at her, she wondered if this would be the moment he would recognize something that would give her away. A gesture, perhaps, or a turn of phrase. But he never made the connection. I suppose I owe you an explanation, she said, glancing sideways at him. Not tonight, he said. She blinked. That wasn't what she expected. Why not? She asked. He shrugged. Because I don't need every answer right now. Trust doesn't mean I have to know everything. And despite everything, I trust you, witch or no witch. She studied his profile. There were new lines at the corners of his eyes that hadn't been there when this began. Whatever this journey had taken from him, it had left its mark. You trust me, Kai? Yeah, I do. He nodded. You fought to get me out of the Black Sentinel, and you brought me here. We're still alive. Those all count for something. Eira looked away, back toward the horizon. When she spoke, her voice came out unsteady. I don't know if I deserve that. Deserve what? Your trust. She could feel his gaze on her, studying her. Then he shook his head. Yeah, well, I wouldn't worry about it. None of us really deserve each other's trust. We've all messed up to some degree." A snort escaped her. She turned back to face him. "That's dark. So unlike you, Kai." "It's honest." He rolled his shoulders. "If we only trusted people who never made a mistake, we'd all be alone real fast." She tilted her head, weighing that. She wanted to tell him that he had no idea how badly she'd messed up. No idea how many lies she'd told, or even how long she'd let him believe she was dead. The words never made it past her throat. They stood there a while longer, neither speaking. The wind carried the scent of embers off in the wither blaze, and somewhere beneath her ribs, the confession sat coiled and waiting. "Thanks," she said, "for giving me your trust. You earned it. You're like a sister to me." The opening was right there. All she had to do was say it. "I'm Nia." Say it. Just say it. She opened her mouth. "You know what's strange?" Kai said, his gaze drifting back to the horizon. "I spent cycles wondering what I could have done differently. If I'd been faster, stronger, smarter maybe, I could have saved my sister, Nia." Eira's breath stopped. "But I've been thinking," his voice went quiet. Maybe I needed to lose her to become who I am now. To stop being that scared little kid who couldn't protect anyone." She didn't have any words for what that did to her. "Oh," she said. I'll always miss her," he continued. "But I've learned a lot about myself while I've been here. I think I'm finally ready to let that guilt go. To move forward instead of looking back." He glanced at her with a faint, tired smile. "And having you here, someone I can trust, that helps." The confession died on her lips. She could see it now with brutal clarity. Kai needed this reconciliation. Telling him the truth now would shatter the moment, and she was not prepared to upend his world again. She nodded slowly. Mm-hmm. Kai turned back toward his room, pausing at the threshold. "Get some sleep, Eira. The next churn will be a long one." She watched him disappear inside. He grieved her. Nia, that is, properly, fully. The way people grieve the dead. Because to him, she was. She shook her head. He had carried the guilt of her loss through every dark corner, allowing it to shape him. And tonight he had fully, carefully set it down. She could have done the same for him with 2 words, but Eira didn't dare jeopardize Kai's focus on the mission. "I love you, Kai, but I can't tell you yet. Not when we need your resolve. I've stolen the truth from you. Grieve me now, and hopefully you will forgive me later." She wiped her face and stretched her shoulders back, but the weight of the secret felt heavier than ever.